private member's business, notice number 3. The member for Durack to move motion in relation to education in regional, rural and remote Australia.
Call the member for Durack.
I move the motion relating to education in regional, rural and remote Australia in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm very pleased to speak on my private member's business, highlighting the Turnbull government's work in country education. Firstly, I want to set the record straight regarding education funding. Last year, this government increased funding to WA schools by a whopping 42% over the next 4 years, which is some $619 million, Madam Deputy Speaker. So accusing this government of making cuts to schools is pure fantasy. As a Liberal, I'm very proud to be shining a light on improving education in the bush and start by paying tribute to the other 3 speakers today from the government side. The member for O'Connor, who's here with me now, also the member for Forrest and also the member for Canning. All these speakers are from the Liberal Party and all proudly represent rural and regional West Australian electorates. All 4 of us know the challenges of living outside of a city and are determined that a kid in the bush should have the same opportunities as their city cousins. In a bid to improve education in the very remote towns, which I represent, Madam Deputy Speaker, this government is providing $22 million over 4 years to Good to Great Schools Australia to roll out the flexible literacy for remote primary schools program in 33 remote schools in Western Australia and the Northern Territory. This will target the disparity between remote and metropolitan schools, where 94% of Year 3 students meet the minimum standard in NAPLAN, compared to 84% in remote schools and sadly 55.7% of very remote schools, many in my electorate, Madam Deputy Speaker. As well as remote schools, the Turnbull government is improving education for Indigenous Australians. We have provided some $11.5 million over 3 years to 2016 through the Indigenous Boarding Initiative to support non-government schools with significant number of Indigenous students from remote areas. Last year, this initiative helped 26 schools and over 1,700 students throughout the country. This funding will help these schools deliver improved services to students, such as a focus on school attendance and engagement, and ensure Indigenous students from remote areas have access to a universally good education, as they deserve, Madam Deputy Speaker. Learning is a lifelong process, and I believe that tertiary education is an important chapter in every young man and woman's education. In Durack, I'm very proud of the highly successful, innovative Geraldton University Centre model. And this is something, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I'm working hard on to expand into the northern part of my electorate, in the Pilbara and in the Kimberley, but also more broadly into the wheat belt as well. GUC has grown since its inception from 20 students in 2001 to over a whopping 250 students this year, which I believe is a fantastic result. It has been so successful that the GUC model has been copied in Cooma, New South Wales, with the Cooma University Centre opening in 2013. I'm especially proud of this government's recent changes to youth allowance, Madam Deputy Speaker, which will enable more kids from the bush to go to university. Reforming this assets test has allowed thousands more young people to qualify for youth payments such as youth allowance, ab-study living allowance and assistance for isolated children scheme. The regional higher education forums, which were held around the country, and we held one in Moora in my electorate last year, I'm very pleased to say will also lead to improved outcomes for regional tertiary students. Our regional higher education forums were very proudly supported by the representatives from the Department of Education and Social Security, and who are now charged with the responsibility for preparing a report of the findings from the forum, and I'm quite confident that the report will detail the barriers for country students, which will also deliver real recommendations. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have met with the Education Minister, Simon Birmingham, and also Social Services Minister Christian Porter, along with fellow regional members on this side of the chamber, and we're pleased to say that we're now pushing hard for an increase in rent assistance for students from the bush. So the Turnbull government, as I've said, is focused on creating real solutions and delivering real action in improving education across all levels, which I've talked about, primary, secondary and tertiary, for regional, remote and rural students. To students and their families in the bush, my message is simple, Madam Deputy Speaker. We understand on this side of the chamber the issues you face. We are listening And those of us on this side of the chamber are working to deliver quality education. And I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about what we're going to do now and into the future.
I thank the member for Durack